Oh, hello again, everyone. Welcome back, and thanks for visiting once again. Now, this is I think we're going to call it a retrospective video today, and it's been sponsored by, oh, that nearly disappeared. It's been sponsored by a live that MOS6510, I think he's called, models. You all know him, the Airfix aficionado. Very nice guy, does a good live every Monday. Go and visit it. He did a live on a Thursday evening, which is this evening, which he was forward announcing some changes or some updates and big announcements from Airfix. And as always with these particular get-togethers, the subject of what Airfix are doing in terms of models came up, and of course the ubiquitous suggestion was about the TSR2 and whether people should bring it out, whether Airfix should re-release it and so on. Lots of people think yes and lots of people think no and so on, but there was a comment made about the fact that some people were saying that the kit itself, the original 1/48 scale kit, of which I'm showing you an example or built example here, was unbuildable. So I thought, well, that got me to thinking, and I thought, well, okay, let me go through it for you all, and I'll tell you what I did to this particular kit, and how I felt that it went. Those of you who were at the live will know what I actually think, because I put it in a few words, because you can only really put it in a few words on the live. You've got, I think, 190 or 200 characters to be able to describe something, so I said not very much really. But what I thought I'd do for you as a by way of retrospective, because I was rather new to YouTube at that stage, and as I've said elsewhere, I lacked the skills that I actually arguably don't have to this day in presentation. I thought I would essentially go through the instruction manual here, and you can see the kit in the background here, and I can point out, you know, one or two of the things that I did to it as well, and highlight where I thought it was easy or difficult. So, I mean, as you would expect for a kit of the vintage, it's not the 3-colour instructions that you see from the Airfix kits of today. It was a stapled book in a number of pages. So, I mean, it was I think it was a little thicker. I mean, this particular one's quite thick, so I mean, it would lead me to believe when I looked at it to begin with that it was going to be quite a detailed kit. There was quite a lot to it, I felt. It was one of its age, I think, the kit itself, but I went through this in, I think it took about 9 months or so in total to do, but the reason for that was only because A, I take my time with these things, and B, I don't always get the opportunity to make models, to the exclusion of everything else, much like everybody else, I would imagine. But I have a fairly busy life with quite a lot to do, and I thought with this one as well that what I would do is try and match as far as possible an original TSR2, and so I selected, as you will know, XR219, which is the only flying variant. You can see the ident number there, XR219. And I resolved to put as much detail into it as I could. So when I did the original kit review, I looked at the kit with the eyes of a noob, really, because this, I think, was actually the second kit I built in 40 years. The first being the Mustang that I did a retrospective of, I don't know, 7 or 8 months ago for Steve at Steve's Vintage Model Builds. And anyway, I'm going to do one for you today. Let's take a look at this now, and let's go through it, and I'll highlight some of the things that I saw. Now, this is an old kit. There will be some around, and if you resolve to build one of these after you've seen this, it's as well to be aware that there aren't many of them around anymore, not the original kits anyway. When I bought this, I think I paid about 60 quid for it, something like that. They're well more than double that now, because there are fewer and fewer around, and I suspect that ones will pop up from time to time, you're going to perhaps be a collector if you buy this, or a kit like this. You may not want to build it, so you might not see so many built examples of this original kit any longer. I'm not a collector in that sense. I'd rather look at this thing built, to be honest with you, and I was happy with the result that I achieved with it, even though I can spot some areas in it now that, quite frankly, I'd like to change, but you know, it is what it is, really. So the instructions did the usual thing of having a nice little legend about the TSR2 Tactical Strike Reconnaissance Aircraft number 2. You got some instructions and so on, but they get you in exactly the same way with the, I'll just bang the camera there, cockpit and this assembly here. Now with this particular model, I dispensed with these cockpit assemblies, so I didn't have to do any of this assembling. I considered this to be rather crude, and at the time there were a couple of upgrades that you could use, both of them resin. One of them was Checkmaster kit, which I bought, and that was the cockpit tub here, and these cockpit rear walls and the seats. I made a bit of a nonsense of it because I was quite new, so I bought another one from a company called Wolfpack. Now, I've had a look and I don't think you can get a Wolfpack kit anymore, but it really was a very good kit, because what you got was the cockpit interior, the seats and the nose cone, including this brass pitot head, and the effect is really quite stunning. You have to be you have to have your wits about you, because when you actually put the nose cone in, what you are in fact doing is replacing the nose cone slightly aft of this demarcation here, up to about here somewhere. You're sawing off the end of this and then putting this nose cone on. But I'll come to that in a minute. But they get you to put the cockpit together. They ask you to put the chaps in as well, which I didn't do, as you can see from this. Let's lift this up and show you. So I didn't put the chaps in, and I've done the canopies open, which again that's an extra, but we'll come to that in a second. You know, that if you want to do it this way round, it's fairly straightforward, but be aware there's precious little in the way of detail on the control panels here, on the instrument panels. The control stick here is frankly monolithic. It's not 1/48 scale. It's quite a long way over 1/48 scale. It's much too big, and you can even see it here on this, to be honest with you. So it shows its age in the sense that there are some drawbacks here. In terms of the nacelles, the air intakes, I've modified them on this particular kit, as you will see, in the sense that I sawed out the what's called auxiliary air intake, so you've got two on either side. These were here for the purposes of allowing extra air into the engines at low speeds, and there were several designs of them, but what I did was saw them out and then make these out of plastic card. Now, you don't have to use really thin card, you can use quite thick card, and then you can file it to a point like that across the front here, and that way, because you're only looking into it from essentially straight on, it gives the appearance of being very thin. So you're using an optical effect in order to achieve this, but you can achieve that effect. This was the second attempt to do these four leaves here. The thing I didn't do on this, which I wish I had done, is to actually sharpen these intake nacelles, because on the actual aircraft, and I have done a video on the actual aircraft where I've done a walk round, it's worthwhile taking a look at. I will try and remember to put a link into it. You will see that these intake nacelles are really very sharp, so if you want to do a realistic view of this, then do that. Sharpen them up. But in the sense of actually building them and putting them together, it's very easy. These things go in very easily. You have to make a choice here about whether you're going to do XR219 or XR220. XR220 had the rearwards facing camera fitted to it. XR219 of course did not, so the hole that you see in the side wall of the fuselage here is something you're going to have to remove, fill in actually, so I've done that. Do these on both sides and do what you need to do there, and then by that stage you are essentially, we'll go over the page, you know, that's your lot done with this, and you're essentially ready to start looking at the bomb bays and the undercarriage wells. Now, I practiced here to add in detail because there's quite a lot of pipe work and detail that fits down and in amongst this lot here. These are coloured, I think, from a recollection, slightly differently. It says 33 in the paint guide. Let's see if I can find the paint guide here. I'm sure it must be here somewhere. And no, it isn't. I can't find it. But these are Humberol colours. But one of these is orange, and one of them is a sort of a very dark, not quite black, but very dark colour. But you have the choice in this regard about whether you put this detail in or not. If the undercarriage doors, or if the undercarriage is down on the actual aircraft when it was operationally used, the doors here were always shut unless the undercarriage was going up or down. So as you can see, what I've done is I've done this in, you know, according to Hoyle, so it looks proper. So none of the detail that you can see in here is actually really particularly visible, although it's been fully weathered inside. You can't see an awful lot of that detail, but you know, there you are. It's one of the sacrifices you may wish to make. The kit itself allows you to model those wells open, but having done all this and decided whether you want to put the test pack in here or the bomb, you can choose whichever one you want to do. This test pack effectively on 219 was just ballast, basically. In step 14, you're looking at now preparing the way for the petals, the air brake petals. These 24 and 21C units, they were a bit of a mystery to me to begin with, and it felt a bit odd how to put them in, and I left them off for a long while whilst I sort of thought about this and put the rest of this stuff in, because actually what you can do is you can take the choice to not put them in and just leave the leaves here shut. You can model them open. I've done them in a slightly different way, and I'll come to that in a second, but I actually managed to get these two halves together before I even decided to put them in, and I worked out how to put them in. Now, for the sake of memory, I can't really recall to my mind exactly how that went, but suffice to say, they did go in, and they give you purchase to be able to put the petals, the air brake petals in. Putting these halves together, remember, if you're using the Wolfpack upgrade, means that you're going to have to saw off this end here. I'll just zero in on this a little bit for you so that you can see it properly, even though the light goes a bit strange. You have to saw off just slightly aft of this point here, but you have to saw it off at the correct angle. Now, the reason for doing this is because the angle of attack of this nose cone was not up like that, and that's how I started off with it when I got it wrong and had to do a long and very boring video about debonding this nose cone, because I needed to get it back down here. Now, the reason why this nose cone points slightly down like this is it gives the pilot more visibility out of the front of the aircraft. If the nose cone was up, he would have more difficulty steering the aircraft. That was the reason for that. But you need to make certain that you get all your ducks in a row with the, let's get you into this area, with the nose cone and cockpit if you're doing the upgrade. Without it, it's pretty straightforward. And also, if you want to, you can start putting detail into this other undercarriage well. You can do that before you put this together. Now, getting this together is really easy. Let's zero you back out again so that you can see this. That's much better. It uses a different lens on the iPhone. It's quite clever how this works, I have to say. I won't go into that just now. But putting this together was pretty straightforward. It's really cleverly designed, this, because the seams are here and here. They're visible, and at the back here, in fact, I don't think, as I recall, they're even visible back here. There are no seams visible from this point, well, essentially this point backwards. So this is the only visible seam that you have to deal with, apart from this one, well, not even that one down the front there actually as it goes. Remember, I'm having to remember this from a long time ago. this is the only seam you have to deal with. So actually, this is a really clever design. The bottom half of the fuselage goes in underneath, and it follows again a really clever line, because it goes along a line of a seam. It goes along a panel line, so you can disguise it. So this bit is really straightforward. What I do recommend people do is put in a piece of sprue that you measure up to be the same width as this distance here that's subtended, so that you stop these two sides here from splaying inwards before you get this bottom part on, and it gives some extra strength. But remember that the tailpipes go back to about here on the original kit fitting stuff, but not quite so far on the upgrades that I've put in the back there, which again are resin upgrades. So you can't put that piece of plastic too far backwards, otherwise you'll land yourself in some difficulties. But it does give you extra stiffness in the framework. You don't have to do that, and it doesn't make a world-shattering piece of difference if you don't, but it's worthwhile doing. These wing sections were just about the simplest thing in the world to do. I didn't have to do any seam filling on these front sections, which are the two most visible sections. All I did was glued them together and then just gave them a bit of a file down. There was no seam at all. They went together absolutely beautifully. I couldn't believe how well they went together. It was stunning, quite frankly. And so you get to step 17 and you're putting the wing section on. You have to have your wits about you there, because of the way that, as you can see, the U shape of the wing section here means that it's, oh no, that's sliding away. That's no good, is it? This is the show with no script and no cutting, so it's live as it goes. Because of this U shape, the U shape is slightly oversized. This section here is slightly undersized, so it can go either to one side or the other. So because at the back here you have a V shape, it's a shallow V here, and this is a shallow V, bingo, you can center it up automatically simply by placing it on the top with some Tamiya extra thick glue plonked in there, or contact, or whatever you like, your glue of choice. Put this on fully forward and then draw it back, and that has the action of centering up the wings, so you get it exactly in the right direction, so it's exactly right. I don't really think you even need to clamp it all that much from memory. It might, some wings, depending on the moulding and so on, might bow slightly, but not by a good deal. There won't be a lot of work to do there, unless you've got a, shall we say, a real duffer, and I don't think there were too many of those, to be honest with you. So putting on those wing sections is easy, and here's where Airfix got really bloody clever. No seam to attack here behind the wing section here on the trailing edge. Just put a panel on top of there. No seam to attack at the front here because of this section here. Just drop that straight in, and everything fits together with minimal seam lines, minimal problems actually making this look good. And as you can see, this seam line here just looks like a natural panel line. There's no problem at all with that. It's absolutely brilliant like that. They recommend that you put the tailpipes in at that stage. Now, you can or you can't, and the reason why I say that is because I've got to be careful with this now. The tailerons, it's just a tail elevator with an aileron attached, because these were blown flaps. The tailerons tail in towards the tailpipes, which means that if you've got the tailerons on and you need to put them on really before you put this in, you're going to have a job getting that in. You have to sort of basically jigger it in. These don't move, although they are designed to move, because you put a washer in at the back of this on the pin. Let's just move that and sit that down. So as you can see, there's a pin there, and then there's another pin there, and you put a washer in there. But if you do this the way they show you with 4D and 5D, these two tailer-ons in after you've put the tailpipe in, you won't get that washer in. So you need to put the tailer-on before you put that in, which is why I went that way. The other reason I went that way is because I've made this a two-tone, which is what it looks like in the actual aircraft itself, and I left it off until right at the last minute because you want to paint this white. Of course, it's an anti-flash white, but you want to paint it white. So leave that off, I would suggest. You can put the vertical tail fin on, you can put the tailer-ons in, you can put the flaps in. The flaps were a dream, they're just dead easy to put in. If you want to get clever about this, and you can put blown flaps in, you can put the flaps slightly angled down. You could easily do that. It's so simple to do. And then we're into the realms of the undercarriage. These wheels, if I'm going to be absolutely honest, I think the depression of the tyre would tend to indicate a slightly underinflated tyre. I don't think it was realistic in that sense. This tyre is, I think, also slightly underinflated, but you know, these were the these were the original. Were these the originals? No, these were the resin set that I got, and I used the some white metal upgrades on the undercarriage legs, because I was concerned that the undercarriage legs themselves might be a little bit too weak. I don't think you need to worry about that. I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem, but remember to put the scissor jacks in. It's at this point that you might want to think about starting to put in any hydraulic pipe work that you want to put in. As you can see, I'm going to try and show you this now because I've got to move this, quite a long aircraft. Let's go to the back of this, see if I can't show you it very easily, to be honest with you, but there we go. Let's just zero in on that like that. You can see that I've put in the hydraulic pipe work and the pipe systems coming down from inside here into this. So there's boxes and ganglion and pipe work. You can see that on the example at Cosford. Remember, it was XR220, so it was not far off actually being able to fly. So you can get them in there. From the best of my recollection, I put this panel on and then drop these in and then attack the I attacked the all of the hydraulic stuff beforehand, and then this went on, and then these went in afterwards and were super glued in. They went in really nicely. Then you're into the realms of gluing these in. On the plastic oleo legs here on the main undercarriage, by the way, these pins to go into the bogie here are much too long, so you need to shorten them so that they so that when you glue this in, it comes in and butts, this section here butts right up to the inside of the undercarriage leg. Otherwise it just looks very, very odd indeed. Again, you can see the detail here. Airfix say that these doors need to be open, or can be open. I've put them shut because that's how they should be, to be honest with you. The other thing I did with the undercarriage leg at the front, the oleo leg, as you can see, what you get is a pair of lights, a pair of landing lights, and that's it. It looked a bit bare, so I took the opportunity to put in, let's see if we can zero in on this and show you this. So give it a bit of light, maybe that might work, hopefully. I'll zero this in just a little bit more. You can see just in there, these are the undercarriage steering jacks that I've put in, and there are also some bits of pipe work poking around there. You can just about see them. Sorry, this is really quite long. It's difficult to actually show you that in any detail. So there are things to look at underneath the aircraft if you really want to, and it's one of those things. Do it when it can't be seen, and then when it can be seen, you'll make a good job of it. But those are the things to do here. If you stick to the plastic kit, this all goes together, I'm pretty certain, very easily. Another example of clever design by Airfix here. One less bit of seam to attack here because of this 26B panel that sits on here. Again, really clever stuff. Then you're into the realms of putting in the doors. These doors open, those doors shut, bomb doors shut. And then we're back down to the main undercarriage doors here. Again, these doors open, those doors shut, and you're pretty much almost home. This 47A component here is again much oversized, and that's the limitations of the mould that they used at that stage. You can thin it down quite easily, and it thins down very nicely. So it looks all right, and it's worthwhile doing, if I'm absolutely truthful with you. Then we're into the air brake petals, which go in, and you get the option of modelling them open or closed. Now, if you're going to do XR219, you may wish to model the petals slightly open. There's a reason for this. Now, this is what I've done here, and as you can see, these petals are, hear the noise, they're slightly open. Now, there's a reason for that, is that on XR219 and the TSR2s, the undercarriage, the air brake pedal jack was here underneath this panel, and they had problems getting the upper and lower pedals to synchronize. So what they did was left them in this position if they were going to use them, so slightly open, and they locked them shut for supersonic testing and high speed testing. So they didn't use the pedals at all and just relied on undercarriage braking and the parachute that came out the back here when they were slowing the aircraft down during all the testing at Boscombe Down. So I've matched the XR219 whatnot here, which I think was quite a nice idea. It worked for me anyway, because I don't particularly think that this detail that's in there looks particularly good, and I couldn't have modelled it absolutely accurately excuse me, because I wasn't able to find anything from there. So those are those air brake petals. The only option they give you with 1F, 2F and 3F is shut. So I decided to do these open. What I've also done with these as well, and what you can do with these, if I can show you this, maybe I can. I've added more detail into, you can just about see that there, can't you? Into the cockpit roofs here, and you do that with just very thin plastic stock, and it gives some additional visual detail there. And the other thing is that I notice a lot of people who build these models, they use a transparent yellow inside here. That's not really the correct colour. This is not quite correct, but it's the closest I can manage to get to. And what I used was transparent orange and a mixture of that with titanium gold, and that seemed to come out really well. And just a very light dusting on the inside there gives you that coloration there. And I didn't colour the front of the canopy because it was actually much lighter. So at that stage you're sort of then into the position of pretty much a finished model. Your nose cone would already be on, of course. Again, the plastic pitot head is a single piece. It doesn't change its size, whereas this brass one does, which is exactly what it ought to. And it's a little monolithic, so you might like to think about stretch sprue there. I didn't need that because I had the luxury of that kit. Then you've got some additional nodules. These are vent pipes here and exhaust vents here. I've painted those a semi-gloss black just to give some additional really visual interest. It's not strictly accurate. And I primed with a grey primer, and then I painted over that, in between these panel lines, a darker grey, and then over painted with Hataka acrylic anti-flash white. which at the time was the only one I could find. There are other examples of anti-flash white, but that went down really well. And I think it was 6 or 7 thin coats before I got to what I thought would be the right type of finish, and it's turned out okay, really. But the last thing to think about here, and you can see this specifically on the diagram here, is this thing, this little aileron, or this undercarriage jack here. This is called the Aylesbury strut, and it was put there in order to prevent the undercarriage wheels from moving from side to side, which obscured the vision of the pilot on landing for 2 or 3 seconds. The original XR219 Aylesbury struts were just a simple strut which was permanently on there, and then they were modified to be one that folded away with the undercarriage. You can put that on XR219, you can also put it on XR220. It's in the kit, and I think it's part numbered 36, but it's not in the diagrams to put in anywhere. So you could get all the way through to the finished kit here without putting the Aylesbury struts on, and I just would think, do that, because you will be left with those bits in the kit at the end. Put them on and for goodness sake use them. It's definitely worth looking at. The decals, which were old, went on actually pretty well, to be honest with you, and they look pretty good. I was quite pleased. I'm not a fan of decals, and I learnt to hate decals here as well, given this is the second kit I think I ever did in 40 years. There are loads of them. It took me all day to do these decals, every one of them. There are some errors in the decaling. For example, 21 here is actually 22 that I found. That takes a little bit of sorting out, and you need to get your options right for various things, for obviously the XR219 or 220, whatever it might be. But what you end up with is the anti-flash white makes it very, very bright, and then what you can do is put your decals on, and then you can tone it down with a bit of matte varnish, and then you can give it a bit of a wash and do some panel lining. I've just used a dirty rainwater type wash, and that's given it I think a very realistic sort of look. The question was it an easy kit to build? The answer is really yes, it was, and it's actually an easy kit to modify as well. So I'll go through with you just one or two of the updates and the upgrades I did with it, going essentially nearly from front to back. So at the front here, the windscreen clearance pipes, and the rain dispersal slots, which were in here. There's a pitot up there. That's the 219 pitot. There's a couple of experimental pitot heads here, and there were 2 pitot heads down here beneath the avionics bays, one on the port and one on the starboard side. Okay. I did the leg retraction jacks on the underside of the front of the nose wheel. I did the nose wheel steering jacks as well. I put in the what are they called, hydraulic pipework, and the Aylesbury struts. I also put in, as you can see here as well, the auxiliary air intakes. The air brakes are modelled slightly open, as you can see, which gives this a slightly more realistic look again. As I say, there's a few things that you can't see, quite a lot that you can, but was it easy? Yeah, it is pretty straightforward, to be honest with you. It's a pretty easy kit to build. It's a bit old, I'm afraid it's not got the detail if you build it out of the box, but if you can get hold of the upgrades, probably CMK might still have some that you could do, or you could use, then it looks pretty good. The CMK upgrade from the point of view of the instrument panels is not absolutely accurate. In fact, to be honest, I don't think any of them really are completely accurate, but I felt that the Wolfpack upgrade was probably the most accurate, having looked at my reference source, which was a book called Britain's Lost Bomber. So in response to the most excellent Moss and Lord James at To Boldly Go, your lordship, I thought I would do this quick video, which has scarcely lasted 35 minutes, which may have interested you. I hope it does. And so I therefore once more, and hopefully for the last time, present you with my Airfix TSR2 XR219. And thanks very much for tuning in once again. Hope you enjoyed that and hope you gained something from it. With a big shout out to Moss. If I could say right now, if you like what I do, please do feel free to subscribe. I'd really like to see you along, and you help the channel grow. That would be great if that happened. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, see you on the next one. Take care for now. Bye bye.